Well, hey there, everybody. It's Thomas Wooden Railway, and I am back with another review on a very interesting Thomas and Friends character. This is Bertram. He appeared in one episode back in season 5 of the TV series, and that was it. And he did receive a piece of merchandise around that era. But then for some reason, a couple of years ago, Fisher-Price and Mattel came in and they released this version of Bertram. So I'm going to compare and contrast these two models you see here, and I guess we'll get started with the old version. So Bertram's backstory is a bit of an interesting one. In the episode, the season 5 episode, Toby is like exploring this like old abandoned area, kind of like this abandoned mine, and like no joke, like 30 seconds before the episode ends, all of a sudden we are introduced to this narrow gauge engine named Bertram, who he wasn't really like abandoned there, but he just works there, and he's known as the Old Warrior. And at the end of the episode, it's basically like, yep, and everybody lived happily ever after, and Toby has a new friend and all that. So to me, I was never a big fan of the episode because I thought Bertram was kind of shoehorned in at like the last minute. It's like Toby's about to make this great discovery, and then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, brand new character. Bertram, and there's really not a backstory, and he doesn't even speak. He just makes a cameo. So I was never a big fan of Bertram when I was a kid because, for one, I thought he was like a blatant ripoff of Duke, which is, if you go look at like an actual picture of Bertram from the TV series, you'll notice that his model that they used is just Duke's repainted model that was used in season 4 of Thomas and Friends. Remember this, his episode was in season 5, and they basically put a different face over the body. It ended up being Smudger's face, who made a short appearance in season 4 as well. So I was just never a fan of Bertram as a kid. I felt like he kind of rubbed me the wrong way, thought he was a total ripoff of Duke. And so as a kid, I never had any desire to go pick up this Bertram model, which was sold in a 3-pack called the Bertram and the Scrap Cars pack. Sorry for the camera angle, you can't really see the top of the box. Bertram with the Scrap Cars, and Learning Curve actually did something really smart here. I think they knew that, you know what, Bertram, he's had one appearance so far, he probably won't appear again. Is anybody really going to want to go out and spend the money on an individual engine that nobody really knows anything about? Because remember, his backstory, or lack of backstory, is kind of his weakest point. So they partnered him together with these two scrap cars, which as a kid I remember wanting the scrap cars. I didn't really want Bertram, and now looking back, these scrap cars are really awesome. I wish I had more of them, but they did something really smart. They partnered him together, even though in the episode Bertram does not pull scrap cars, I don't think. So it's just a total random 3-pack that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but from this era of the Thomas and Friends range, that's not entirely unusual. So Bertram was only available in this pack, and he was sold, season 5 was 1998, and this that 3-pack came out around 2000. So Bertram was only available in that 3-pack for a couple of years, and then they retired the 3-pack because I don't think it sold very well. And then all of a sudden, about a decade later, Learning Curve is preparing to sell the Thomas Wooden Railway range to another company, and all of a sudden you're able to buy Bertram by himself. They released Bertram individually, and you could go out into stores. I think I remember seeing him at Toys R Us and maybe some smaller toy stores, but you could actually go out and buy Bertram individually, which was like a huge deal because before, back in the day when that 3-pack was new, you had to go out and, pretty much bring out all this money to get, these extra, cars and an engine in case like you just wanted Bertram, you had to go out and spend this extra money. All of a sudden that was no longer the case. You could just go out and buy Bertram individually. And this, I remember back in like 2011, 2012 when this was happening, Bertram used to be a pretty sought after character on eBay, and so he would actually bring in a decent amount of money. So this was, pretty smart. It kind of leveled the playing field for people who wanted to go get Bertram and didn't want to have to spend a ton of money. There may be some small differences between this version of Bertram, which is dated 2001, I believe, and the 2012 version. There may be some very, very, very small differences, but I'm thinking they just had extra stock that they needed to get rid of, so they sold them individually. So this version of Bertram isn't necessarily bad, but it's not great either in my opinion. If we take a look at the face and you were to go like open another window on your computer and go look at a picture of Bertram, the face isn't like identical to Bertram's actual face, but it's pretty close. I'm glad they didn't replicate the Smudger face, because since we ended up getting a version of Smudger a few years later, this kind of allows Bertram to have his own identity, in my opinion. But there are some areas here that are painted red for really no reason other than, I think, to just brighten up this model. If you were to go look at a picture of Bertram, his domes aren't red, the top of his cab isn't red, I don't think. I mean, even this area, like where his buffer beam is, I don't think that's red either. And I don't know, to me, this version of Bertram just seemed to kind of blend together. I know that's like a really bad description, but he didn't stand out. I was never a big fan of Bertram or his story, so I was never really ever interested in trying to pick up this character. But I did end up picking up this character once I started my YouTube channel because I thought he'd be a nice addition. The main thing that's missing from this Bertram, however, is a tender, because if you go watch the episode, Bertram has a tender, and the idea here, supposedly, is that the Thomas and Friends company that was producing the TV series was just dirt poor at the time, and they didn't have the money to separate the tender that came with Duke's model from the TV series, because remember, that's all Bertram was. It was just a repainted version of Duke's model, and they were so dirt cheap and they were just out of money. So Bertram, I guess, was intended to be a tank engine, but for some reason they didn't remove the tender while filming, and then I'm guessing maybe the merchandise had already been planned, or just in accordance with those original details, they elected to release Bertram as a tank engine. So to me, I don't really believe that story. I think that's a totally bogus story. That seems like a really silly reason to not get rid of a tender on an engine. The fact that you're out of money, so you can't afford like a saw and cut the tender off if the tender on like the actual Duke model was like physically attached to it. I don't know. It seems like a really fishy story. Personally, I think they just messed up. I think there was like communication error somewhere along the way, and they were like, okay, we'll do Bertram as a tank engine, but then the TV guys third, oh, tender engine, but they had already planned the merchandise, so whatever. So that's the main thing that's missing here. Bertram appears with a tender in the television series, but he isn't given one in this form of Wooden Railway merchandise. Now, Bertram did receive a Trackmaster version, and he did get a tender, so I don't really know where the whole discrepancy came from. Looking back on it, it's just kind of a piece of Wooden Railway history, but in terms of trying to create an accurate character for your merchandise, total bomb, in my opinion. They didn't do a very good job. So, Bertram's an interesting character, but I was never really a huge fan of him. And I thought this was the only version of Bertram we were going to get for, like, ever. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue a couple years ago, Mattel surprises us, and they release the second version of Bertram, and he has a tender, and he has a better face, and honestly, he looks really good. I think he actually looks better than that first version we just looked at. So, and I don't know why Mattel does this. I mean, they did their research because they made Bertram look really nice, but sort of in accordance with, like, when, Mattel first took over the line, they released, like, the Flying Scotsman and D-199, and then later they released Coldy in 2015. And these are characters that had either not appeared in the TV series at all, or they hadn't appeared in the TV series in a really long time. And for some reason, they took the time and money to design these characters and release them. So I'm obviously glad we got a second version of Bertram here that has a tender, because I feel like finally Bertram is complete. He's been running around without his other half for all those years. That is no longer the case anymore. I really like this new version of Bertram. I think the face is almost spot on. It's not 100% identical. It could be a little bit more accurate in my opinion, but it's pretty darn close. So they did a good job with the face. They also did a good job with just these other details along here. They gave him a nameplate. On the old version of Bertram, his handrails were gold, as you can see right here. Now they're silver. His domes used to be painted red. Now they're not painted. And you can actually see they swapped sizes. This one over here, the old one, the first dome used to be bigger than the second one. Now it's opposite here. His color, I think, is slightly different, or there's a little bit less shine. I hope you guys can see that right there. Like, there's a glossy shine here. Here, it's more of a matte shine. I think that's just the way they produce these toys. So looking at the faces here, I mean, I can definitely tell I like this face so much better. It's got a little bit of a mischievous face, in my opinion, which I don't know if Bertram's necessarily mischievous, but that's kind of the face they gave him when they used Smudger's face from the TV series. I do think this cab area back here is a little bit dull. It's slightly bigger in size, but maybe it's just the red roof really makes it pop on this version. To me, it just looks like, I mean, there's really just nothing going on back there. So they got rid of some other areas of red, like around the sides, and they just kind of toned the color down, as you can see. And the funnel's a little bit different. This cab is more of like a rollover cab. It's really round, which wasn't necessarily accurate. This looks a lot more accurate, in my opinion. So they did an excellent job with this reintroduction for sure. And let me just show off Bertram's tender here, because obviously this is what we all wanted for all those years and never got. So the tender is really simple. It's probably just a repainted version of somebody out there. I don't know, maybe Gordon or something. But it's super simple. However, there's some nice red lining here that really makes it pop. So finally, we have a complete version of Bertram, in my opinion. I think he looks great. Maybe my only complaint is just this cab area doesn't look entirely finished, but it's really okay. And I think he looks great. Here's the thing with Bertram, though. I wanted to do a review of this new 2016-2017 version of Bertram, whatever you want to call him. I'd already done a review of this version of Bertram in the scrap cars in the past, many, many years ago. And one thing I wanted to bring to your attention, maybe some of you already know this, but when the pictures for this Bertram were leaked and this model was announced, I got super excited. I was like, man, that looks really good. He has an awesome face. He finally has a tender. I'm going to go out into the stores and buy this guy. And, I waited and I waited and I never saw him in stores, and I'm thinking, okay, it's just taking a long time. Like, maybe he's super popular. He's flying off the shelves super quick. Well, Toys R Us is the main place where Thomas Wooden Railway is sold. And I go to a couple of different Toys R Us stores. I never once saw Bertram for sale at Toys R Us. And that had me thinking, I was like, okay, that's a bit weird. It's hard to buy a toy if it's not available for sale. What's going on here? So the Bertram that you see here, that's out of the packaging, I ended up actually having to go online to eBay and buy it from somebody there. Somebody on eBay somehow acquired one. I don't really know how. But it was just kind of annoying that I couldn't go out into the store and actually buy this item, this toy that I really wanted and liked. I had to go online and basically go through like a third-party seller in order to get this. Now, eventually, I did find Bertram in stores. I have a new in-box version back here because I think he's just so awesome. However, I didn't find that at Toys R Us. I didn't find it at Barnes & Noble, which is another popular place to buy Thomas Wooden Railway in the United States. I actually found it at a discount store called Tuesday Morning, which basically it sells a whole variety of things, not just toys. But basically anything that doesn't sell in stores like the major retailers like Target or Walmart or something, basically it ends up there at a reduced price. So I finally found a Bertram. He was I want to say he was $9.99. I think he was $12.99 in some stores. I did see him a couple of different times, however. So considering I probably paid at least $20 for this version of Bertram new in box from eBay just to get one. And then, it was a couple of months, maybe even close to a year, I finally found Bertram at this discount store. But why is he being sold at a discount store, especially since he never appeared at Toys R Us? That just had me really confused, really befuddled. I think it was an error on Mattel's part. I don't know why they wouldn't have sold him at Toys R Us. If you're going to take the time to design and reintroduce a character, why not give him a proper release? And I could name a number of different items across all the different Thomas and Friends ranges. There are similar items that have very similar problems. Like the LBSC Thomas and Adventures form. There's a Rainbow Adventures Thomas that I can't find anywhere right now. There's a couple of different Trackmaster items, like there's a new Trackmaster Etienne from the Great Race. And it's like they're being made because I see them on eBay, I see them on Amazon, but they're for outrageous prices. So it's like, why why do some characters, like, I mean, I guess, why do the popular characters get so many different forms of merchandise? Like Thomas gets a light up reveal and a talking and a battery powered, and those versions don't sell that well, whereas we have a reintroduction of a pretty, popular character in the Thomas and Friends universe, I think, but he's like impossible to find. And then when I do find him, I mean, he's at a reduced price. I can't complain about that, but he ended up at a discount store like nobody wanted him. And I almost want to step in and say, no, people did want him. People want to buy him. It's just hard to buy him when he's not in stores. So in the comments below, let me know if you guys have ended up with this version of Bertram. How did you end up with him? Did you have to go online? Did you find him in Toys R Us? I'm guessing he was sold in certain Toys R Us's and other toy stores. But the couple of toy stores that I went to for months on end never had him. So it was a bit frustrating. For those who have this version of Bertram, or just both, or even if you don't, just let me know which one you prefer. I think I definitely prefer this one, which is why I was in such kind of an angst to go get the new model, because I thought he looked great. So just let me know what you guys think about that below. Love to hear your thoughts on the conspiracy behind Bertram's TV model, why that was done incorrectly. And I don't know, it just seems like Bertram's had a really tough time out there, in the TV side of things and then in the merchandise side of things. I tell you what, I don't think we'll ever get another version of Bertram. I will be shocked if we get like a Thomas Wood version, or who knows, like 20 years down the line. I think we've seen the last of Bertram. So if you want him, I would highly recommend going out, and I think at this point most of the Thomas Wooden Railway is cleared off from Toys R Us, but who knows, check out those discount stores. The store that I bought Bertram from was called Tuesday Morning. Just any discount store in the United States or overseas is probably going to have some Thomas stuff with the way things are going. So anyway, I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. Like I said, leave your comments below as to which one you prefer and any other fun facts that you can pretty much entice me with. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about these toys. Anyway, this is Thomas Wooden Railway saying thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.